Vector Online. Case file open. September 2021. A Saudi activist hands over an iPhone for examination. No warning, no suspicious link, no tap. Citizen Lab starts pulling the device apart and finds something that should not exist on a fully patched phone. A working intrusion with no user interaction at all. This is forced entry, tracked as CVE 2021-30860, a zero-click exploit delivered through iMessage used to install NSO Group's Pegasus spyware. Apple patched it within days of disclosure. We are going to walk the chain the way the forensic record actually shows it. No dramatization, no invented screens, just what was found and what it means for defenders. Stage 1 is targeting. Before any exploit touches a device, someone decides whose device matters. Citizen Lab's case centers on a Saudi activist. The record does not name the individual publicly in the material we are working from, and we will not invent that detail. What the record does establish is the profile of use. Apple has described this campaign as highly targeted, affecting a very small number of users. This is not a mass phishing wave. It is a small number of specific phones, specific people. That targeting detail matters for defenders because a campaign aimed at a very small number of people may not produce the repeated reports associated with a mass campaign. In this case, the decisive evidence came from the device itself. Citizen Lab found the compromise while examining the phone, not because the target had clicked a suspicious link. Stage 2 is delivery. The vector was iMessage. No link required, no attachment the target had to open, no message the target had to read twice. This is the zero-click model. The exploit fires during normal message processing before the human ever makes a decision. Apple later stated that attackers created Apple IDs specifically to send the malicious data to targeted devices, and that Apple's own servers were used to deliver that data, but were not hacked or compromised. The infrastructure did exactly what it is built to do. The abuse was in what got sent through it. Forensically, what Citizen Lab actually recovered were files disguised with a .gif extension, even though the underlying data was not a GIF at all. Specifically, 27 copies of an identical 748-byte Adobe PSD file, plus 4 differently named files that were actually Adobe PDF documents containing JPEG 2 encoded image streams. The mismatch between file extension and true file type is a forensic detail, not something a user would normally see on screen. Stage 3 is the barrier this exploit had to get past: BlastDoor. Apple built BlastDoor specifically to sandbox and pre-screen incoming iMessage content before it reaches the rest of the operating system. A hardened choke point meant to stop exactly this class of attack. Citizen Lab's report states plainly that forced entry circumvented BlastDoor's protections. We should be precise about what circumvented means here and what it does not mean. The public record establishes the outcome. BlastDoor did not stop this exploit. It does not provide a step-by-step account of the bypass mechanics, and we are not going to reconstruct one. For a defender, the lesson is structural. A sandbox is a layer, not a guarantee. Defense in depth still matters when one protection is bypassed. Stage 4 is the trigger mechanism. Apple's own advisory language for CVE 2021-30860 says that processing a maliciously crafted PDF could lead to arbitrary code execution. That single sentence is the entire public description of the vulnerability class from Apple's side. And it tells you the passing of a document format, not a web page, not a script, was the point of failure. Citizen Lab's independent analysis narrows this further. The PDF artifacts recovered from the device contained JPEG 2 encoded streams. JPEG 2 is a compression format for monochrome images that can be embedded inside PDF files. That identifies the kind of data Citizen Lab found, but the public report deliberately does not turn it into an operational exploit recipe. Stage 5 is the underlying flaw itself. Citizen Lab attributed the vulnerability to an integer overflow in Apple's CoreGraphics image rendering library, the shared component responsible for decoding and drawing image data across iOS. An integer overflow, in general terms, happens when a calculation produces a number too large for the space allotted to store it, and that number wraps around into something the program was never designed to expect. Feed a rendering library a value it assumes will always be small, make it large enough to wrap, and the assumptions the rest of the code relies on stop holding. We are stating that mechanism at the level Citizen Lab described it, and no further. This is not a walkthrough of the specific overflow trigger conditions, and it should not be treated as one. What matters for the defensive record is the location. CoreGraphics sits underneath a huge amount of what iOS renders: images, documents, previews, which means a flaw there has reach far beyond any single app. Stage 6 is where the exploit surfaced in the forensic record. Citizen Lab found that the identical 748-byte PSD files caused crashes in a process called IM transcoder agent on the target phone. The report identifies those crashes as artifacts observed during examination of the device. To be clear about what is observed versus inferred, the crash artifact is a documented forensic finding. The exploit's internal execution path beyond that point is not detailed in the source record we are working from, and we are not filling that gap with invented technical narrative. For defenders, repeated crashes in a media handling process are worth preserving for qualified examination rather than dismissing automatically as routine instability. Stage 7 is the payoff for the operator. Apple stated directly that forced entry was used to install NSO Group's Pegasus spyware onto the targeted device. Pegasus, as a commercial spyware product, has documented capabilities that can include access to microphones, cameras, and stored data on a compromised phone. We are stating that as the general capability profile of the software family. We are not claiming every one of those capabilities was specifically forensically confirmed as active on this individual examined phone, because the source record for this case does not make that specific claim. The documented record connects malicious message data, image rendering artifacts, a BlastDoor bypass, and the installation of Pegasus without user interaction. Citizen Lab disclosed the vulnerability to Apple on September 7, 2021. Apple shipped a fix on September 13th, the same day Citizen Lab published its report, and assigned it CVE 2021-30860. Citizen Lab assessed the exploit had been in active use since at least February of that year, against iOS versions 14.4 and 14.6, meaning the gap between assessed first use and public patch ran to months, not days. Where it dies. Every stage in this chain maps to a control that either existed and was bypassed, or didn't exist yet and now does. The vulnerability stage dies at the patch. Apple's fix for CVE 2021-30860 shipped September 13th, 2021. The BlastDoor bypass shows why the sandbox must remain one layer in a broader defense. For the very small number of users who face highly sophisticated targeted attacks, Apple's later lockdown mode deliberately reduces parts of the message and attachment attack surface. The detection stage succeeds through device preservation and qualified forensic examination. This case was found because the device reached specialists who could examine its artifacts. The through line for any defender listening: patch promptly, because the patch is the most concrete kill point on this chain. High-risk individuals should understand how Apple delivers threat notifications and consider lockdown mode. If a device is suspected of compromise, preserve it and seek qualified forensic help rather than experimenting with the evidence. That's the chain, start to finish, built entirely from what Citizen Lab and Apple put on the public record. If this case has you thinking about how these operations actually feel from the inside, our sister channel, SYB3R tells real breaches as dark cyber thriller narratives. Same true events, a different kind of telling. Go find it after this. Next time on What the Kill Chain, a state-sponsored group that doesn't bring in outside tools at all. They live inside critical infrastructure for years, using nothing but what's already installed on the network, quietly preparing access they may never even need to use, until the day they do. Subscribe, and I'll see you in the next case file. Debrief complete. Go hunt.